Okay. I got this question from mid-March. She wants to know the significance of a rising sign, a moon sign, and what it means when your Venus or Mars is under a different sign. Well, first of all, when you're born, the sun is obviously somewhere in the solar system, which, or not in the solar system. Okay. When you're born, the sun is in a different constellation every day, essentially. So when you're born, that sun is your sun sign. If it's in the constellation of Pisces, you're Pisces. If it's in the constellation of Aquarius, you're an Aquarius, etc. The same can be said for different planets. So, and even the moon, because they can move through the constellations the same way that the sun does. So when you're born, the moon is in a constellation, Mars is in a constellation, Venus is in a constellation, all the planets are somewhere. So there's ways to find out where all those are when you were born. And each of them represents something different.
Your sun sign is your inner self. It's your soul, basically. It's who you are at the very basis. As opposed to your rising sign, which is the sign that you outwardly portray towards others.
It's your personality as others perceive it to be.
Exactly. So I'm an Aries. So on the inside, I'm childish and dramatic and all sorts of other things that go with childish. But on the outside, I appear to be knowledgeable, more calm, more blunt in the things I say, and seem to have a little more tact than I really do.
Because your rising sign is
Sagittarius.
Similarly, I'm Sun Pisces, I'm Moon Pisces. My ascendant sign is a Leo. So while inside I have turmoil, I have self-loathing, I have low self-esteem, all of that, when people meet me, they think I'm very proud, they think I'm vain, they think I'm all of those things assimilated with being a Leo. Your moon is next. Your moon deals with emotion, it deals with the subconscious, it deals with the psyche, and all of that. So when in different signs, that's also how it affects your personality. For example, I'm moon in Pisces, as I mentioned, so I'm very in tune with my own emotions, and Pisces are typically psychic, so with the subconscious being influenced by by Pisces, rather, I'm an incredibly psychic person.
And my moon happens to be in Aquarius, so while I want to go out and I want to do things and I want to bounce around everywhere, my moon sign holds me back and makes me think about more of the logical side of what's going on, and it makes me want to help others more than just get somewhere myself. I have a tendency to think of others a little bit more and want to help them with everything that I have.
Right. And then there's Mercury, which deals with communication and acquiring knowledge. My Mercury is in Pisces, so I still have the Pisces trait in me. When it comes to talking, if I'm excited about something, I'll talk and talk and talk and talk, and I won't stop until I get over it, I stop caring about it, whatever, which happens after however long.
Pisces too.
We have, yeah, all this the same. Okay, so.
Alright, and likewise, my Mercury is in Pisces, and I'll talk and talk and talk, but because I'm not Pisces, with my sun and moon base, I have more outgoing, more self-confident signs in my core nature. I'm more likely to keep talking even if you don't care, because I don't care that you don't care. I care, and that's good enough for me.
It's actually quite interesting because we were born a month apart, so from Mercury to Pluto, they're all the same for us. So we're going to use the same example, but how that is affected by our other signs, if that makes sense to you. Over here. Yep. Okay. Venus represents emotion, it represents love, it represents relationships, all of that type of stuff. So for me, I'm a Pisces, I want closeness, I want attachment, connection, all of that. But that's sort of underplayed by my Venus. Sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I want something more of like a fling. Sometimes I just want to flirt and have fun and not have to deal with anything connection-wise. When it comes to flirting with people, I tend to be very, oh, look how amazing I am, to try to, gain their interest.
And it's kind of the same for both of us, only I'm a little more brutal with mine, because I'm not as empathetic, and I tend to blow people over with my ego a lot more. It's my ego is here, my ego's real, my ego is fitting in this room, and yours is leaving. Sort of. I like to take the dominant role in any sort of relationship, and it's very much so expanded upon because my sun is also in Aries as long.
Right. Whereas with the opposite is with me, because while my personality is that I tend to dominate, I tend to be very, oh, I'm better than you. If someone shuts me down, I let them. and it's anger. Mars represents desire for action and physical energy. Okay. Next comes Mars, and Mars represents desire for action and physical energy, while Venus is inward, Mars is outward. If you think of the god Mars, the god of war, it's sort of with that. It deals with anger and that sort of outwardness. Both of us have our Mars in Cancer. Typically that says passive-aggressive. With me, it's true. I'm a Pisces. I don't want to hurt people, you know. So when I'm angry, I sort of bottle it up. I'll say slight rude comments. I'll lash out. I'll say things that are passive-aggressive and then just go and grumble to myself or complain to someone else about them.
Exactly. And even though my sun is in Aries, and if you know anything about sun and Aries people, they lash out. They're quick-tongued and just want to, like, attack. But because my Mars is in Cancer, as well as defending myself, I have more empathy about how others would feel, how I act. I don't know how to say it. How I act sometimes, you know, goes back and hurts those around me, and I'm much more likely to think about that first. And if it does happen, I do tend to have that inner turmoil and inner loathing because of the Cancer.
Right.
So.
And with both of us, since Mars is in Cancer and Cancer's a water sign, when we're angry, it's not a quick flash and then it's done. It tends to stay for a long period of time.
Exactly. But mine is much more likely to fade faster because of my sun in Aries and, you know, the different core, the rising and the moon. So I'm more likely to get over it faster, and
I hold on to it longer.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean I'll say anything about it, though. Jupiter represents expansion and growth. Both of us have that in Libra, which means when it comes to expanding, we're very open-minded about it. We're sort of just like, I don't know how to go about this one.
Because it's Libra, and Libra is all about balance. When we grow, we want those around us to grow as well. We don't like to be held back by others. We like our lives to be fit and full of balance. If we learn something new and we find that maybe some of our friends are a little more immature, we're more likely to cut them out of our lives, even if we try to help them go along.
Right.
Because they just don't quite align. So it's representative.
And then Uranus is truth and Neptune is delusion.
Okay, so
next comes Saturn. Saturn has to deal with how you see your limits, how you see what you can do, what you can't do, and why. We both have Saturn in Saturn and Uranus. That makes sense. Ew. I was like, oh, not the planet, and then like, wait, it is. Oops. And then I blush. So I've been blushing. It's just laughing too hard. Shut up.
Next is Saturn, and Saturn represents your limitations, how you view them, and what that kind of makes of you.
Right.
Both of us have Saturn
in Aquarius. And now you're gonna kill me because you're like demon possessed. Both of us have Saturn in Aquarius, so when it comes to limitations, we're very logical about it. It isn't, oh, I'm not good enough to do this, or, oh, I'm too good to not do this. It's, I can do this, and I can't do that. That's just how it is.
Exactly. We're more likely to accept that there are things that we can't do.
Right.
And then going back to our core signs, the sun signs especially, I'm an Aries, so Aries can't really accept that there are things they can't do, so while part of me is like, you know, you might not be able to do this, my Aries is like, bah! We can do it anyway.
Right. And with me, it's sort of similar. I'll be like, oh, I'm not able to do that. I'm not good enough. And that side of me is like, you know you could be if you tried. That is in your potential. But my Pisces is like, nah, I'd rather not.
Exactly.
And then next comes Uranus and Neptune. These two are sort of opposites. Uranus represents truth and reality. Neptune represents delusion and fantasy. Neptune is actually the ruler of Pisces. Both of us have Uranus and Neptune in Capricorn, which keeps us very logical when it comes to these. We know what's real, we know what's not real.
We both, however, do have problems with fading into fantasy because of our other signs and how they're placed in the charts.
Right.
However, this keeps us, so we're more likely to keep our emotions a little more inside. If we don't know that something's not real, or if we get lost in our fantasy world, we're not likely to share it with those around us because part of our head is saying, look, this is real, this is fantasy. I know you can't tell, but, you know, this side of me can, so we're just not going to mention it.
Something like that. especially with Pisces, because Pisces live in fantasy. Our whole life is fantasy. This keeps me a bit more grounded. So instead of, fooling myself into believing things or things of that nature, I keep my eyes a little more clear.
It makes us both a little more cynical.
Right.
Aries is naturally the most optimistic sign of the entire zodiac, and it turns us a little more cynical because it keeps me more grounded.
Right. And Pisces is similar. It's in a relationship, oh, I love him so much, he's perfect. That's like, no, people can't be perfect. Look, see, those are his flaws. And it's not even an upsetting thing as much as it keeps me from being too lost in fantasy.
Exactly.
And then next is Pluto. Pluto deals with transformation. It deals with destruction but creation. It's change. And both of us have Pluto in Scorpio. It always just has great sexual activity.
Basically.
I know, it's just funny.
Yeah, it is kind of funny.
When it comes to change, we tend to not like change as much, but we go with it anyway, because we sort of know that's for the best.
Exactly. The Scorpio makes us really intense, and while we might feel deeply about it inside, we're quick to kind of jump around, almost.
Right. With my Pisces, if I resist the change at first, I'm eventually just like, you know what, I'll just go with the flow. I guess, I can't really do anything about this. I'll just go with it and see what happens and make the best of it as I can.
Likewise, if I'm an Aries and I'm stubborn and go against the change, it's going to beat me down. So I've learned after years of worldly conditioning that sometimes it's better to just go with change, to accept change, because sometimes it could be a new thing and I just need, to get over myself.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a lot more to astrology, but that's sort of the basics with some examples that might have been a little too drawn out for your liking, but hopefully that gives you a little bit better understanding. So Thank you for the question. Okay, I'm going to stop this one.